Alright guys, when we last left off, I just finished putting the engine and transmission into the trophy truck. So the next step is to put in all the accessories in the fuel system, so let's start with the radiator. Now when I removed it, it was a little bit easier than when I had to reinstall it because I added in an extra support tube in the front, and then I added in extra supports for the coolant bracket. So let's just jump right into the frustration that was installing that radiator. Alrighty, I'm getting ready to paint the fuel tank shell. So this is just that shell, if you remember, that I made up that houses the fuel tank. Now because there's going to be little drips and drops of fuel on this, what I've decided to do is not rattle can it. I'm going to use a proper two-part paint. Luckily I've got some gloss black left over from when I did pizza truck. So I'm going to use that. And then I also have a small amount of plastic pieces I need to paint, so I'm going to use the Bulldog adhesion promoter so that it sticks. I'm using that on things like this. This is the steering column cover, and boy, it makes all the difference in the world when painting plastic. So I'll just shoot these real quick and then we'll be good to go. Alright, I've got the fuel tank shell all finished getting painted. I think it looks pretty good. Now I just need to put the fuel tank back inside. I still need to figure out how I'm going to do this vent. I haven't figured that out exactly yet, but I'll figure out a solution for that, whatever's safest, and then get it mounted up on the vehicle. Alright guys, unfortunately it's time to finish up this wiring harness. And I say unfortunately because it's just not that much fun. Now if you remember, when I put this together I didn't split loom it because I knew that I was still going to have some work to do. Some of that work is this alligator clip that's hooked up to the ground for the starting relay because I switched computers to the police interceptor. These alligator clips here, these are because I removed the lighting control module, so I need to add a flasher so that my multifunction switch works as normal. I need to, let's see, what else do we have? The headlights, obviously I changed out the type of headlights it has, so I need to hook those up. And then if you see here, this support bracket that I've got, that was so that I can remember how it sits on the vehicle because I had that huge extra loom that looped around when the vehicle wiring had to take a circuitous route when it was on the Crown Vic. But because everything is nice and tight on the little trophy truck here, I'm going to be able to chop out a huge section of the wiring. I'm not looking forward to this, but sometimes when I'm building vehicles, what I'll do, when I have so much to do, you see all the parts laying around, when I have this much to do, I'll kind of stop, reevaluate, and think, what's the thing that I want to do the least? And at this moment, what I want to do the least is this wiring. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll get the camera set up so you guys can watch me suffer a little bit, but we'll get it all cleaned up. Alright guys, well that was not fun. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. I got everything done except the split looming, the final split loom that goes over everything. And this is how much I was able to remove. It's a decent amount. This absolutely wasn't necessary. I could have just installed it and let it loop around a little bit, but that just drives me nuts. And look at all the weight savings I'm getting. So, get this finished up tomorrow and then get it on her. Alright, I think I've got most of the parts I need to install laid out here. The exhaust, I kind of forgot I hadn't painted this yet. I definitely should put some paint on it just to prevent rust. So I guess I'll have to do that first. The rear electrical harness, it's pretty much good to go. You see the only thing that's not cleaned up with electrical tape or split loom are the final end connections. This is the transmission cooler line. I have misplaced my transmission cooler, and I don't know how I did it because it's not very small. So it should be somewhere with the other parts, but I can't find it. The mass airflow sensor along with the final elbow and the air filter, and then my main ground and my main power. So I guess the order is going to be paint these while that's drying, install this. After this is installed, this should be done drying, install these, and then find my transmission cooler and install these lines, and then air filter, and then electrical. So I'll just go this order to that order. I think the Egyptians went from right to left, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll do this in the Egyptian order. Alright guys, I'm getting ready to do the exhaust, and I showed you on the driver's side how I massaged this a little bit before I painted it. Now on this side I did not, and I regretted it because the clearance was so tight. Well, I went ahead and massaged it a little bit with a, where is it, the crowbar right over there. And you can see, of course, it damaged the paint a little bit on the inside. But, you know, that's kind of a rite of passage for this type of a build. If I didn't end up damaging the paint, then I would have been a little bit disappointed. I am going to have to mess up a little more paint because I missed a weld right here. I did not notice that, and I think there was one other little one somewhere. Oh, it is right up here. I don't know how I missed that. So I'm gonna have to grind these down a little bit and weld them and hope I don't mess up the paint too much. But hey, at least it's not a nice vehicle, right? Alright guys, I'm very close to starting it. I've been making great progress. Let me catch you up to speed. I've got my OBD2 port here, that's all mounted up. I've got a few of the electrical connections finished up, including adding that one of the main grounds. I've got my air filter and the elbow all hooked up along with the mass air sensor. Right now I just have Velcro because I still haven't figured out what kind of strap I'm using. Right here I've got my oil pressure line. If you remember, this is the copper one that I use instead of the nylon that it comes with because it's a lot safer, it lasts a lot longer. Over here I added this support. I used the existing holes from the motor mounts just to do the support across here, and then I zip tied up my coolant line, the lower radiator hose, just to make sure that doesn't move around too much. Let's see, what else? All the electrical, except for the battery ground, is all done. So if you remember, I've got my main power line that runs in here, mounts to the starter line. And then over here I've got it all the way set up, zip tied, everything's nice and safe to the battery. Exhaust is all done. I still have to add a couple hangers, but I'm still trying to decide exactly how I'm going to do that. But really, I think all I've got to do is that ground strap, and then I've got to fill up the fuel tank, I got to fill up the transmission, I have to fill the engine with oil, the power steering fluid, and the radiator. Now I did go ahead and pressure test it. It held pressure just fine, so I just have to fill up a little coolant. And then I think we're ready to go. Now if you remember, I did the whole wiring harness first, had it running, then I took it off, and then I ended up chopping it up on the floor over here a little bit. So I'm hopeful that I did everything right. The only real modification that I did, I think, was add the ground. So this ground here is now connected directly to that ground for the starter relay, and that was because that's different on the police interceptors. So the computer is different, and so you have to bypass that ground. I think that's pretty much it. I got the radiator cooler hooked up. So I told you guys I couldn't find mine. I ended up finding it right here, but I had this one and this one also in my little storage unit out there, and I decided to go with this one because just eyeballing it, it looked like this would probably cool it the best. So I've got that ran here to the factory lines right over here. It did go from a 3/8 to a 5/16, so I used a little brass adapter in there to make that connection. I probably could have used either a 5/16 hose and forced it on the one end, or the 3/8 hose and then clamped it a little tighter down there. But over time, these hoses all seem to swell a little bit, so I've been getting better and better at using the exact right hose for the right job. So hopefully we'll have a little bit less failure there. All right, let's just let's get this fluid in here and then let's see if she starts. I was about ready to fill it up with fuel, and I wanted to show you guys how I label my fuels. So here you see it's gasoline, 87 octane, and then the date, 2nd of February 2020. Let me show you some of the other containers I've got. I started doing this just so that I can remember how old the fuel is. You see here, this is diesel. This is from August of 2019. That was what I pulled from the Dodge, so that's a little bit questionable. I wanted to mix that in. And then here, this is last week, March 20th, 87 octane. That way I just know what I'm putting in there and how old it is. I use stable as the fuel stabilizer if it's been more than about a year, but if it's less than a year, I just go with it. So let me get this in her. All right, I think everything is hooked up. I filled it up with fuel. I filled the transmission up. I filled the engine oil up. Power steering fluid, coolant. I think that's it. The only gauge that's hooked up right now is the oil pressure. That's the only thing that I'm concerned about because I'm not going to let it get up to temperature to need a temperature gauge. So let's see if she starts. Fuel pump primes. One more. Something's not hooked up. It's turning on, it's priming the pump. It's that starter again. Alright, let's see what I've messed up. Alright, I've got the ignition switch on, but I'm going to bypass the starter switch to see what the problem is. The connectors all seem fine, so I'm not sure what it is. Let's see if we can get it. Well, that was mostly good. Let me show you real quick. There's that oil leak right here. That is the back of the gauge. Wasn't tightened correctly. So there's a mechanical connection to the back of this mechanical oil pressure gauge, and that has a leak in it. So I got to fix that. But hey, at least it starts, and then I got to figure out why the starter isn't working. All right, round two. I've got a different oil pressure gauge right there. I think the fitting was just loose on the back, and it caused the whole thing to spin. All right, let's see if it's doing any better now. Alright guys, I ended up figuring out the problem. If you notice here, this is my starting system. It's very, very, very simple. So you've got power that goes to the ignition switch when it's in start right here. Number 3, it goes to the central junction box, which is this right here. That's the second junction box. It's the third fuse in the center. That's going to be your start. And then I tested it there. 12 volts were good. So then it goes to the this is the digital transmission range sensor. So this is the thing that actually plugs into the transmission. So I was having an issue between right here, I was getting power, and and right here I was not. So if you see right here, that's C139. So I go to the back of the book over here, take a look at C139, and if you notice, this is the large connector, number 1 right there. That's a brown pink, that's the correct one. So then I went over to the main harness, and I found that the main harness here between the fuse box and basically this is the whole engine harness, this wasn't clipped all the way. So this was moved up, and I just wasn't getting a solid connection between that one wire. The other ones were, so it was allowing it to run, but that starter line. So I've since hooked that back up, and then let's see what we got. And there it is. So now I'm going to make sure I have the transmission fluid at exactly the right level. I'll do that now. Alright guys, I'm working on doing the graphics for the side of the trophy truck here, and this is what we've come up with. You see you've got, that's my company logo right there, Colson Design and Fabrication, and then next to that, this little guy over here, that's I'll show you when I print it up, but I've got NGK, Felpro, Rock Crawler, BF Goodrich, and then I've got my little YouTube please subscribe dealie at the bottom. So this is the setup that we're going with. Initially I had thought about doing this circle right here because I really wanted to make it look like that GT40 that I was telling you about, and they had the big white circle with the black number on it. But the more we kind of move these things around, the weirder it was looking. So we decided to put everything back there, and I think it looks pretty sharp. So the way it prints up is we've got this machine over here. This is called a silhouette machine. I haven't the foggiest idea how to use this thing, but my wife does. So I'm going to have her print up. I think the only thing we've got left to print is that little Felpro. So I'm going to have her show you how that's printed up right now. So this here is the stripes that it's cutting out for the Felpro logo, and in a second here it's going to start to cut out the individual letters. Alright, there it goes. Now it's doing little letters. You can tell because it's going nuts. So here are some of the decals that we've already printed up. You can see a YouTube subscribe button there, then NGK. Now most of you know probably that the NGK emblem, or logo rather, is bright red. In this case we want to do it orange, so it's all going to be orange, black, and white. I think that'll give it kind of a cool look. This one here, this is the BF Goodrich, but we haven't taken out the individual letters yet, and this is the Felpro, and again haven't taken out the letters. So she's going to peel it here and show you kind of what it looks like. Isn't that crazy? And then she uses a razor blade to pull out the little center of like the O and the P. Oh, and the R, yeah. Oh, is that the little trademark? That's cool. And I'll show you how these are applied, but it's real simple. Basically, you use a transfer paper that sticks over this, and then you peel it all off as one, put it onto the vehicle, and then you peel off the transfer. But I'll probably do that tomorrow. This piece I made a little bit longer so that I can reuse it on the BF Goodrich piece in a second. But I just wanted to show you how it goes. Now let me show you on the vehicle. So this is that decal I was trying to show you guys on the computer. This is the only one that probably doesn't make sense to you guys. This is Black Rock Bouldering Gym. This is a local climbing gym that was started by my buddy that I joined the Army with. The rest of them will probably make sense to you. NGK, those are the spark plugs that I used. Felpro, those are the gaskets. Rock Crawler, these are the used coilovers that I bought for 900 bucks back in episode 1 or 2. BF Goodrich tires, those are the used tires that I got from that Jeep. And then of course the little YouTube insignia there so I can get me some subscribers. Alright guys, I was about ready to put the hood on, but I wanted to give you one last look in the light without that hood, because I think it looks kind of cool without the front end on it. You know, you really get to see just all the components, and it's really starting to get there. I did finish up the graphics over here. They came out pretty good. Everything's looking nice. The wife says I need to change the subscribe Austin Coulson to black because it's difficult to read on the light blue, but otherwise everything looks good. So for the inside, I still need to do the engine covers. I have the top one, and then I have the transmission cover. I still need to do the cover that goes right here. I do have the bottom cover and the front cover ready to go. I've got a couple on the passenger side that I do have to make. I have to install the rear seats, and I don't know if you can tell, that's the vapor line for the fuel tank. I've got a little port that I've got to put somewhere that has a little vent on it. But it's getting really close. Let me get the hood on and kind of just show you overall how it's looking before I end up editing this video, but it's getting there. Alright guys, so this is how it's looking with the graphics, the rear fender, and the front end finally on it. It's still not all finally mounted. I still have to put the latches on the front, but I'm filming this with my phone because it seems to make it look a lot more realistic than the GoPro. The GoPro kind of gives it a weird fisheye lens, even when I have it, you know, zoomed in a little. And I think it looks real good in real life. I don't know, you guys be the judge. Alright guys, that's it for this episode. The plan was going to be for next episode to take it to the MVD, have them do the VIN assignment, get it registered so that I can get it on the street. Once I did that, I was then going to test drive it. Once I drove it around far enough to make sure that there were no shake, rattle, or rolls on it, then I was going to swap out the rear gears for the new gears and the locker. Once I did that, I was going to have to put 500 miles on it where I get the diff up to temperature, cool down, up to temperature, cool down, and so on. So it's a bit of a process. I was going to try to squeeze all of that into another episode. There's a delay in getting the registrations done. Well, not the registrations, but the inspections. The inspections are done usually about 10 to 12 days out, so I'd have to schedule that. And I'm not sure if they're still going to be doing them because of the coronavirus. So, not sure what's going to happen in the coming weeks, but that is going to be the next plan. The plan is to get this thing on the road as soon as possible because it's basically good to go. All I need to do is make a couple pieces of sheet metal. That should be pretty straightforward. So that was going to be the plan for the next episode, basically get it all ready to go out into the desert, and then the episode after that would be taking it out into the desert and seeing what breaks. I mean, really beating the living heck out of this thing and seeing what gives first. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm sure that's what you guys are all looking forward to as well. So I'm going as fast as I can. From my end, things have changed a little bit because of the coronavirus. I'm having a delay in getting some parts, and we're self-isolating on the compound here. We're trying to stay on it as much as possible. Arizona's not being hit too hard, so I'm still going out and about when I need to, but we're trying to be very careful about each trip. So if I need parts where I would normally go to the auto store 3 or 4 times in a day, we're waiting and we're going once every 2 days and making sure we have everything. So it's making everything take a lot longer than expected, but hey, it's not that bad out here. Hopefully you guys are all doing well, and hopefully this whole thing blows over sooner rather than later. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Keep tuned, stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll be here. See you guys.